Start the meeting, and I'd like to welcome for our first panel Mr. Steve Barrett of eDNA Tech Inc., from Harbour Air Limited, Randy Wright, from Hoverlink Ontario Inc., Christopher Morgan, and from Energica, Frederick Cote. Each witness will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement, and then we'll go to rounds of questioning. So we'll just... and I'll remind witnesses, especially those online, that you can choose the language of interpretation. There's basically an icon at the bottom of the screen, and of course you may use either official language. And when you're not speaking, if you could put your mic on mute, that would be appreciated. So without further delay, we will start with Mr. Barrett.
Juste une chose, pardon.
Pardon, oui, madame. Madame Posé.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Given that we're starting 15 minutes late, are we going to be able to... Do we have interpretation? Yes? We will go till 5:30, so we won't lose any time. Without any further ado, I would invite Mr. Barrett to... There's no translation?
OK. Alors, je pense qu'on est correct.
I think we're okay. We're ready. So for 3 minutes, we'll begin with Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes, good afternoon. Ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Steve Barrett. I'm the CEO of eDNA Tech, and I thank you for this invitation today. Our company uses DNA technology to measure, monitor, and characterize the environment. We analyze environmental DNA, or eDNA, as we call it. My first point is that biodiversity loss is the next mega trend. We were slow to recognize climate change. Now, the next wave is biodiversity loss, and it's accelerating. Today, 1 million species are at risk of extinction, and ecosystems are being devastated. And our Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. Given this trend, how can eDNA Tech help Canada with its ambitious environmental goals, such as conserving 30% of our MPAs by 2030, supporting Indigenous self-determination and reconciliation, net zero, and numerous DFO mandates such as stock assessment, invasive endangered species, and marine spatial planning. The thing is that the environment is notoriously difficult to measure. Traditional catch and look approaches just haven't changed for decades. Scientists watch for whales, they catch some fish, they listen for birds. Only a handful of organisms are considered. It's very costly, and it takes months to analyze the information. And these techniques are entrenched and simply cannot scale. And you can only manage what you measure. We measure the environment with environmental DNA. We take samples of the environment, such as water, soil, sediment, even air, and a liter of water can identify thousands of organisms, everything from bacteria and plankton to fish and marine mammals. It provides a highly granular baseline of biodiversity. It's 10 times faster, 10 times cheaper, it yields 10 times more information. No joke, our customers tell us this. It's non-destructive to nature, and it's easy to take water samples. We're a we are a St. John's, Newfoundland company. Over $23 million has been invested by industry and government. We are the inventors and globally recognized experts in this area. And we've conducted hundreds of projects with DFO, oil and gas industry, and 3 Atlantic Indigenous communities. And we're currently raising $10 million to fuel our own commercial growth. Here are our recommendations to government. First of all, we urge you to embrace a new approach and new thinking and partner with SMEs like eDNA Tech and our private sector expertise. Secondly, we urge you to support the expansion of the Blue Gene eDNA ocean management system. It's currently underway. It's an Indigenous-led eDNA program that incorporates traditional knowledge with advanced eDNA science, specifically in the regions of Nunavut and Nunatsiavut. It supports Indigenous self-determination, reconciliation, and capacity building. And we're seeking a $10 million investment from the government to the First Nations led program to support this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. You'll have an opportunity to share more information and insight in answer to questions. We'll go to Mr. Wright. We'll go to Mr. Wright at this moment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you to you and your colleagues for having me here today. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the traditional and unceded land of the Algonquin-speaking people here in Victoria, British Columbia. My name is Randy Wright. I am the president of Harbour Air Seaplanes, overseeing the operations, business development, and overall growth of the company for the last 2 decades. Harbour Air is the world's largest all-seaplane airline and has extensive operations throughout British Columbia, providing safe, reliable, and convenient transportation to the traveling public. Our BC-born company flies 500,000 passengers a year on 35,000 flights across 14 scheduled destinations, and we employ over 400 people throughout the province. We provide a key link with the Cascadia Corridor and our central component in the connectivity to this crucial economic and innovation gateway. Over the past 40 years, Harbour Air has become renowned for award-winning safety culture, excellent customer service, and commitment to sustainability and innovation. As Harbour Air expands, we are committed to green destination development. In 2007, Harbour Air was North America's first airline to become fully carbon neutral. In 2019, Harbour Air announced its partnership with Washington-based magniX, the company powering electric aviation revolution. Together, we connect communities with clean, efficient, affordable electric air travel by converting Harbour Air seaplanes into an all-electric fleet. We are uniquely positioned to be a leader in the commercial electric flight due to our short flight missions, single-engine aircraft, low-altitude flights, and accessibility to renewable electric power. Our successful development of our first E-plane in December 2019, we successfully flew the world's first fully electric aircraft, a historic event that made headlines around the world. This is a proud moment for Canada and especially for our company. Since then, we have performed over 50 test flights exploring improvements to overall performance and reliability. The second E-plane is now being built, which will act as our prototype and certification aircraft as we work with Transport Canada Civil Aviation towards flying the first E-plane for commercial use by the second quarter of 2024. Our goal is to convert our entire 40 aircraft fleet to electric planes, becoming the first zero-carbon airline fleet in the world. Upon completion, we'll expect to reduce our carbon footprint and current noise pollution by 80%. As you can imagine, this is a large project with significant capital costs, and we're in discussion with all levels of government to ensure the appropriate financial support is there to fully realize this initiative. Harbour Air itself has and will continue to heavily invest our own money in this initiative. Ultimately, our hope is not only transform our own fleet, but to see the adoption of clean technologies by other airlines and aviation partners throughout our industry. Okay. Achieving this outcome will require true collaboration between industry and government.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wright. We'll go to Mr. Morgan now. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Morgan. I'm the CEO and founder of HoverLink Ontario. HoverLink Ontario is launching in the summer of 2023 a passenger service that connects the 2 largest tourist regions in Ontario. The service is fast, reliable, and affordable. I want to expand on that. The service will see 2 craft at 180 passenger capacity crossing 48 times per day, 365 per year, not impacted by ice, cold, or the heat. Amphibious vehicle designs creates an advantage over traditional marine vessels designed to meet the needs of an ever-changing world. HoverLink's mission is to launch with a sustainable transit option with the congested Golden Horseshoe and very quickly accelerate the move to an EV platform. The passenger service is game-changing. Since our press release, we have had over 150 million digital impressions, received significant support from the service from constituents and all levels of government. There is an obvious need for a rapid hovercraft solution. Why are hovercrafts a superior option? HoverLink's craft has been modified to enhance their ability to operate in extreme and urban environments, significantly quieter than older predecessors, energy efficient, reduced sound transference, protecting our marine life, shoreline positive as they create no wake or wash. The assumptions are that the average CO2 per car is 0.21 kilograms per kilometer. A 1-to-1 ratio of passenger on craft to automobile provides us with a significant and immediate reduction of GHG for Route 1 at the launch. Our efficiency is unmatched as we hover over the water. The energy requirements to mobilize the craft do not change with gross tonnage on board. In the example that we've listed in our deck that you all have a copy of, the blue line represents the same volume of our business modeling of cars, freight traveling by traditional means. The orange line represents our craft emissions moving through the same volume of passenger freight. We assume for this phasing are modest with only 4 passenger craft moving over 6 million passengers per year and 12 cargo craft. This also accounts for HarborLink using biodiesel at the launch, sees the cumulative GHG emission reduction improve, and we are currently working with Mercedes, Rolls-Royce, Siemens, and Marconi to facilitate the move to electric propulsion engines and ensure that we create an end-to-end sustainable transit solution. This represents a move to EV, slide 7 when you do get to it, and we are actively developing this technology to meet a net zero goal by 2028. Our R&D platform is robust, has us designing these through these models end-to-end sustainability, renewable EV platform, and eco-friendly manner. Our infrastructure planning sees us not only providing sustainable passenger and cargo option, it also ensures our infrastructure builds are sustainable, renewable, and eco-friendly. The hurdles noted when asked about this, interfacing with government, we see silos of decision-making, navigating the funding programs, and champions of electoral change, reluctance to change, communication barriers between all governments. Our business plan is centered around people, planet, profits, and we're a value proposition that includes the expansion on the Great Lakes and other regions of Canada and North America, sovereignty protection, and a solution that impacts our climate change on our Great Lakes and surrounding waterways, and melting of ice roads, flooded lowlands, and environmentally sensitive areas.
We'll have to stop there.
And I'm good. That's it.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Cote.
Before I begin, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this committee to testify before you and undertaking this important work. Laissez-moi vous présenter Energica. Energica est un centre.
I'd like to introduce you to Nergico, which is located in Quebec, which is a center of applied research that stimulates innovation in renewable energy industry through research, technical assistance, technology transfer, and technical support for businesses and communities. We are affiliated with the Gaspé CEGEPS. We work in solar, the solar sector, wind sector, and we are the only center in North America that has its own infrastructure in a cold climate. We have expertise that's been developed over 20 years, making us a privileged player in this sector, both here domestically and internationally. We also work for communities. As I said earlier, we've developed unique expertise for cold climates. We have severe weather conditions, so we have presented our work to the International Energy Agency. We've talked to them about renewables. Through our work, we have accompanied communities and businesses in renewable energy projects. For example, in Nantucket, they have been dealing with energy transition. In Nunavut, according to the Canadian energy policy, we're going to have to be producing more than 50% more hydroelectricity by 2050. So energy stockage, wind power and solar power will be part players in this. So the energy of the future is electricity, but the future of electricity, it's really resides in solar and wind power as well. So we work with businesses and the government in research and development. And even if these are technologies that are more mature, there's still work to be done in terms of adapting them to the climate and integrating them in a large scale through our electric grid. These technologies will enable us to export as outside of Canada. The volume of the projects makes us take a second look at our projects. We deal with projects on a case-by-case basis, and we look at the energy potential of these projects. We work with the provinces, the municipalities, and with our Indigenous partners. We need a national industrial policy, so have a greater impact on the international market. For example, the wind power sector in the Gaspé is a model that we could draw some inspiration from. Thank you very much for your attention. So, first round of questions. We will start with Mr. Grecian for 6 minutes.
Mr. Chair, thanks to all of the witnesses today.
Yes, yes.
Just for the sake of clarity, I had heard that you said we are ending at 5:30. Did I mishear that?
Yes.
Yes, I believe I said 5:50.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. I was hoping that we could end the meeting on time and potentially just reduce our second round of questioning. Is that a possibility?
Well, so yeah, the committee decides. I mean, is that what you want to do?
Don't we have to have unanimous consent to extend?
Yes, I thought I had unanimous consent. I didn't hear any objections, but
We don't.
so we end at 5:30. Okay. Yes.
No,
Sorry.
I would like to not end at 5:30. We've got some good witnesses here. It's already 4. I don't think we'll get them all in if we end early.
Well, when I said 5:50, no one objected. So I mean that. So I took that as unanimous consent. Now, can the committee reverse that?
Mr. Chair, I apologize for wasting more time. I just wanted clarity.
I'm going to consult with the clerk. We don't need unanimous consent to go. Okay, well, basically, we don't need consent to go to 5:50. However, if at 5:30 there's a motion to adjourn and the motion carries, we adjourn. So, I mean, we'll see what happens at 5:30, I guess. So, Mr. Dresian, yes.
If just get some clarity around the time, because we have phenomenal witnesses in both ends of this.
The committee at 5:30 says, unless someone moves, we should adjourn, and there's a majority decision, we continue to 5:50. Okay, so we'll start over, Mr. Dresian, because we had just started with you. You were into it 4 seconds, I think.
Yes, I understand.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank
I'll
you.
give you back those 4
I'm
seconds.
up to 6 right now, but
Okay,
that's
go
good. So well, it's great to hear the witnesses, some great innovation, and from all parts. And I'd like to circle back to something that I've raised in previous meetings in respect to the full life cycle and the importance of measuring the total impacts for whatever process, procedure, new invention that we have. And I say this because I was on public accounts, and we were studying the F-35s. And the biggest thing was full life cycle. The problem, of course, was the Department of National Defense had a different time frame than the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who had a different time frame from the Auditor General, and it made it very difficult for anybody to agree with any of the numbers that were coming, and there was great sport made of that. So what I would like to do is to start with that same premise, that it doesn't matter what it is that we are looking at. We should be measuring it from the first shovel we have to dig it up to the last shovel required to cover it up. And that's where the types of energy sources that we are going to use for electricity have to come into play. Because if we are going to massively increase the amount of electricity required in a particular area, we have to get it there. We have to find ways in which it would be best suited for that part of the country. And it's for that reason why I want to kind of delve into that, just to see whether or not it's possible for us to get those metrics out there before we start having government make massive investment decisions and to go through from there. So perhaps, Mr. Morgan, if you could start off with a bit of an idea of where you see the electricity coming from and how you consider ways in which we can get those metrics out in the open.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. I've been saying for about 6 years now that we need to be completely off the grid. And that takes a number of steps to do it. And even moving to electric, I have concerns about how we manage our electrical sources, even in a battery containment, and even how we waste and what we do with that waste, and it should be net zero. I had the luxury of building a facility with my father in the Caribbean. He was Chief Medical Officer of British Virgin Islands. We built a home down there that actually took all the rainwater and moved it into the largest cistern on Tortola. We put it into 2 cisterns. We went through reverse osmosis, and we managed to do that supply. We also did a wind turbine system very similar to the Typhoon system that the Japanese have, because the propeller units that we use, you don't have to look far to find out the damage they do. They interrupt sleep cycles and REM sleep for people. They kill bee populations. When I'm doing these terminals off the grid, we're doing a number of things. We're looking at things like having beehives on the rooftop to help our friends who've lost, to help the plants in germinating. China is an example where they have to artificially germinate things. We need to look at that sustainably. Same with how you manage the power. It's solar power, it's wind power. Those are things that we don't have much of a waste when we're done. So I think that's really where we're headed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I guess in part of it, I have 53 windmills that start from around 6 miles from my place. They've been up for probably 10, 15 years. They have another few years left. And then somebody's going to have to deal with them, and they have to deal with, the components right now. If it wasn't for oil and gas, if it wasn't for hydrocarbons, those products wouldn't be available. So that's what I'm getting at when I'm saying let's look at the full life cycle of any of these things. I mean, we have this approach that says, well, if it came from hydro, then it didn't matter. Well, it did matter. And, we have a lot of land that has been flooded and all of the different types of things and ecosystems that have been changed because of it. So it does matter. And I think it's important that we deal with that. And I know that, Mr. Cote, you were speaking specifically about how we need to have solar, we need to have wind power. The discussion that Mr. Morgan had indicated, with bees disrupted with windmills, or with propellers. It's the same sort of thing happens with birds and so on. It's not a zero sum. And I'm just curious whether that which you are working with, Mr. Cote, whether you have taken into account or whether you are able to take into account those particular ideas.
Oui, tout à fait. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for your question. With respect to the study of GSGs on the life cycle, these are figures that we have access to depending on the sector, whether it be wind, solar, or hydroelectricity. And we can break it down to components. So you're quite right. The challenge that we have is so significant, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We really need to look at the contribution of all renewables and the energy used on the site. We need to do good studies. How can I say this? A good impact study of each and every project to ensure that we take into account the specificity of what's happening to the flora, the animals, the birds, to ensure that when the project is put into play, that we take everything into consideration. Every project needs to have an impact study done, and it's going to look at all of the different types of energy used. Unfortunately, the time is up. Mr. Duguid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to give my last 2 minutes to Ms. May. And good to see you again, Mr. Wright. We met in Victoria in 2019. I think it was or maybe 2020. It was the last conference I attended before COVID hit, and I was very impressed with the concept and the reality that you are promoting. I'm just wondering. You didn't get a chance to go deeper into this, but what do you need from the federal government? It sounded like financing was a challenge, and I wonder if the infrastructure bank has been something that you have explored, or other government mechanisms that could be helpful in scaling up your very worthwhile enterprise.
Thank you for the question. I would say number one would be assistance in funding. It's a large project, but but like I said, we put our dollars in, and we will continue to put our dollars in. Transport Canada itself has been very slow in understanding COVID happened and people were working from home. But I remember a few years ago when we first started to explore this, that the gentleman in charge of transport, ADM, told me that we have no team. The FAA is 14 months ahead of us. Now, they have assembled a team, but it's been slow. They've been working well with us, but we would like to see more initiative on that with the government agency. And yes, we've been exploring. We do have 2 chargers yourself now. You probably heard Mr. Biden announce down in the U.S. that he's going right across the country in a big initiative on charging stations. And our hope that the governments would follow suit. The provincial government in BC has been suggesting that and are working on that. But it will be important to have charging stations at 14 different locations on the docks to charge these aircraft.
Okay.
And lastly, okay, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, finish up and then I'll go to my next question.
I was just going to say that billions of dollars are going into battery technology. I used to have a brick phone. I carry an iPhone now. And the key with aircraft is the lift. So it's the weight. And our bet is that the batteries are going to get smaller, and the ultimate would be a power pack that you can unplug and plug into take it out of the aircraft and plug a new one in after it's been charged.
Yeah. Thank you, Randy. My next question is to Mr. Cote. It could also be to Mr. Morgan. It sounded like there was some sense of frustration with government, with silos, with coordination and working efficiently with technology companies. And we want more renewable energy. Our grid is supposed to be net zero by 2035. What helpful hints can you give us in terms of dealing with tech companies like yours more efficiently?
Nous, on travaille effectivement.
We work with SMEs. There's a lot of available support, but Canada's reality is that we are a modest market. So the SMEs in renewals have to look towards exporting. So it's very important that we look at innovation. There are already some projects that exist. I think we have to maintain these projects. In terms of applied research at the college level, we do very concrete things. We feel that we have to continue along this path, support our businesses in order to let them export.
Ms. May, but maybe you could respond to that issue of government coordination in another response. Elizabeth.
Well, I'm more than grateful that you're afraid to pass your time to me. My question is to Randy Wright at Harbour Air. I will fully disclose I'm a regular Harbour Air passenger. This is in our neck of the woods for Laurel and me. But I recall well 2019 huddling around a laptop to watch the test flight that took place. We were in Madrid at COP25, gathering people around to say, look, the first electric plane is taking off, and that's in Canada. So I know it's stalled with COVID. You want assistance in funding. I wonder if you can sketch out for us the potential globally, because I think a lot of people will think an electric plane, that's not going to make a big difference in the global carbon situation. But if this stat is right, half of all flights globally are less than 800 kilometers. So I turn it to you.
Correct, yeah. Short
30 seconds, please, Mr. Wright. Yeah.
Okay, and a lot of small airports around, so you're absolutely right, Elizabeth, that opportunity strikes there. You saw that Air Canada just made an announcement, they're 30-seat aircraft. So they're going to be short stages. So there's many airports throughout Canada and the United States that are in short distance, and that will help with congestion at the larger airports, but into the smaller communities. So short stage lengths is key, and how we see that going and with the rest of the aviation world.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Madame Posey.
It's your turn, Mrs. Posey. Yes, Mr. Chair. I have to wait for the end of the interpretation before I begin. Yes, thank you. My questions are for Mr. Cote. Thank you for coming. On your internet site, we can see the progress that your institute has achieved. We see that Energica seems to be a place where is a key center because your expertise and your partners seem to really be there to help businesses that want to innovate. I'd like you to talk about this model of its advantages and the impact on labor, because when we talk about change, we always have to consider the workforce. So could you please talk to us about that? Yes, of course. As I indicated, we are a member of the energy transfer sector in the college sector. What makes us unique is that we are a unique research center. We have a team of 40 professionals dedicated to help businesses. And we also are connected with higher learning. We work with colleges in the Gaspé in particular, but with colleges throughout Canada to ensure that the workforce of tomorrow can benefit from the developments that are occurring right now. So we deal with the colleges. They cooperate with us. We have a lot of trainees that work with our researchers, our businesses as well, to ensure that we have workforce, that we have expertise in research and innovation. We have a project in the Gaspé where they can work in college in centers like ours in order to complete their training. So there are a lot of people that are involved in your organization. There are jobs there, and if you no doubt know the Carrefour system in Quebec, which contributes to the development of clean technology. I understand that you've been twinned with other businesses that are in this sector. Is there any duplication of services that are occurring? Is this Carrefour de la Croissance Propre? Is that the place where we can really harmonize these programs? Or do we have to look at other models that exist? Our challenge is so big. I think there's room for a lot of different groups. The Carrefour sur la technologie propre, the Clean Technology Center, we work with the Access to Technology Center. We work with the federal government. So we work both with the federal and provincial governments. The challenge is to accompany as many players as possible. And so what I would recommend is to support applied research at the college level and at Canadian institutes. We need to ensure that we cover a lot of area because we have rural regions here, we have urban areas, we have projects in the communities. And this model is relevant for all Canadian provinces and is deserving of greater attention, particularly over the last few years. I think we still have some work to do, though. My next question deals with that aspect. We know that there are grants totaling billions of dollars, but sometimes Canada is investing in the renewable sector, and this is an emerging sector, and we have to really focus on it. But which mechanism should the federal government use in order to deal with this inequity with respect to the inequity of services provided? How can we deal with this inequity? I would say that as far as assistance is concerned, we have to develop an electric sector with renewables that is very competitive. That's important. But we also have to develop the workforce, because what we're seeing is that the workforce required to operate wind parks or solar parks, there's scientific technicians, but we find them in other industries, and they could get some type of retraining and work in our sector as well. The challenge in Canada, the natural resources come under provincial jurisdiction. Every province has its own approach. That makes sense because every province is geographically different, so they're dealing with different resources. But at the federal level, I think we need better integration for transition projects. So there's a lot of, yes, we have a lot of electric distribution lines with our neighbor to the south, the U.S., so we have to deal with that as well. These are all things that we have to consider when we support research and innovation. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank all the witnesses for being here. My questions are for Randy Wright. Thank you so much for being here and highlighting some of the amazing work of Harbour Air. Not only, are you folks the first net zero airline with the first electric airplane, but also another witness mentioned bees, and just so proud that Harbour Air has put colonies of bees to help support our urban ecosystem in Victoria. But I do want to ask about that first successful flight. And like Elizabeth mentioned, I was also in Madrid watching, just so proud of what was happening. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of that successful test flight?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. And by the way, I learned a lot about bees, actually putting them up on the roof. I didn't know anything about it. I know a lot now. So that was a huge day, really, in aviation in the world, on the Fraser River, and we could only fly with the permit 10 miles an hour or less. And it was right at 9 when the takeoff happened. But there was at least 500 people on the bank watching this take off. We had, good hopes that everything was going to go fine, which it did. That was the founder of the airline that actually piloted the aircraft. And when we took the plane into the hangar, which we had a stage, and I've done the media for the past 20 years, I have never seen a media scrum like that before. Popular Mechanics, CNN, front page New York Times, London Mirror, everybody was there, and it was a big deal for Canada in the aviation space. So we were very proud and knew we had something going here, and we soldier on, and we're doing, as we call that was 1.0. We're now doing 2.0 as we speak. That plane just came out of the paint shop a week ago, and so we're assembling that, and we hope that transport can move along at a faster pace with us. But I've got to say, they've been really good, but they did not have any people at the start of this. So.
And I understand you're currently going through the certification process with Transport Canada for this second electric airplane. Can you talk a little bit about how that process worked and any hurdles that you have had to overcome?
Yeah, again, it would be transport itself, just in the personnel and getting them out to inspect the aircraft. The supply chain has hurt us, as we all know about the supply chain. From the batteries, we have switched suppliers to H55 in Switzerland now. We're actually going out to Switzerland to meet with them in the next few weeks, which much better provider, and the batteries are getting smaller. So we're excited about that, again, back to weight and lift. So those would be really the supply chain and just government moving along. Again, it's new to them, not to criticize them. They've been very good, but it's all new to them. New to Canada. As I said, the FAA was way ahead of Canada on these projects.
And looking to the future, at the possibility of electrifying your entire fleet, what are the necessary steps to make that happen? And is there adequate funding available from the federal government?
Not at the point at this point right now, but we have been in several discussions with the government on trying to get some funding on that. We've estimated it to be between 38 and 40 million. As you scale up, it's going to get cheaper in building the aircraft. But once we've got it all set, government has agreed on the safety, and the plane's got to be safer or as safe as what we're flying right now, and that's the key. And so we just did our first point-to-point, which was another world's first a couple weeks ago. It was interesting that the Aviation Museum out at Victoria Airport asked if we could do something electric plane, and we had a meeting. We went, well, we got to do a point-to-point for certification, so that's an 18-minute flight. Let's fly into Pat Bay, which we did, and then towed the plane up into the hangar of the museum, and we were the star of the show. The actual people at our booth with the plane could not go to the bathroom. It was so busy.
That is very exciting to hear. Where do you think Canada is in relation to our global peers on electrification? And is there anything that we could be learning from what the Americans are doing?
Yeah, again, we're behind the curve versus the Americans. I just think that we need more resources from transport, as this is a new space. It's new to them, to work through, these curves. I think that would be the first step to actually have more resources in going down this road. Battery technology, again, the Americans are in there too. We're hoping that it will become lighter and more powerful, which we've already started to see. But I would say more on the division, I'll call it, of transport for electrification. We need more resources in there. We're only dealing with a few people.
Time for a 15-second comment, Ms. Collins.
That's okay. I will let the next questioner come.
You're on mute. Mr. Carey.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the witnesses. This is an extremely exciting study, and we really do appreciate your input and possibility for recommendations. I think my first question has to be for Mr. Morgan, living in Oshawa, the Golden Triangle. Hearing about your company, seeing your company's announcements is very exciting. We know in Oshawa, we go back and forth to St. Catharines, where your business is located, and one little accident on a bridge or a road can cause havoc. Cars idling, time constraints. I was wondering if you could take a moment and give the committee an idea about how many cars you take off the road, how safe your service will be, and how dependable it will be as far as weather related. I know a lot of the technologies we're hearing require resources from government and partnerships. I was also wondering if you could comment on, have you received federal government funding, and what do you think about the red tape? And let me leave it at that, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and MP Carey, for that question. The value of cars passing, particularly one particular pinch point, would be the Skyway Bridge that connects Burlington, Hamilton together. The Transportation Tomorrow surveys that were 6 years old pointed at 279,000 cars moving over it in one direction. Then when we were asked, I was back up here a number of years ago talking about our carbon emission reduction and where we were with biodiesel and DEF systems. It worked out that in one day we equate to 33 kilometers of cars parked bumper to bumper. And whether we go from combustible cars to electric cars, you're still going to have people backed up on gridlock. And electric cars, we know that their length of time is not where it should be. I think if you're in a combustible car, you might be on the highway longer just because you have fuel, whereas battery you may not. That's a question to concern ourselves with, whether it's combustible or electric. So I think that's a big piece. Then you start looking at other components. You look at something like the Ohio Valley trucking that comes through the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge. 90% of that trucking, I worked with a professor at Brock University, 90% of that trucking is destined for Ottawa and Montreal, yet it goes around the Golden Horseshoe. We need to find ways of redirecting it. They don't want to go on the toll highways through New York State to Ogdensburg. They just don't. So it's managing that piece. And again, connecting the two biggest tourist regions in Ontario, arguably in the top 3 in Canada, that's a piece that we look at and understand that. If you go to an education piece, I'll step even further, that the province of Ontario and the school systems, they averaged 179 bus trips to Toronto a week, which has stopped. And the hard line used to be Stony Creek heading to Toronto, and it used to be Oakville, Burlington heading to Niagara. Those don't happen anymore because students and parents and the education system doesn't want to have their kids or students in buses for 4, 5, 6 hours. They get a 1-minute piece. I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. That's not what I do. I want to put the energy into fixing the solutions, not pointing fingers at it. When it comes to government, yes, I was here almost 6 years ago. We met 67 MPs in 2.5 days. I was called before Patrick Gosselin and Frank Stendardo from the bureaucratic side, policy advisor for St. Lawrence Seaway. They grilled me December 22nd for 2.5 hours. They loved it. We moved through to January 8th. We were approved, moved through. It went through to the Director General, Jeffrey Hanen. He said, I love it. Let's find you buckets. We're going to put you in the NTCF. We got an invitation to submit to the NTCF. And the NTCF had 5 threads of payment. We didn't get, we were good for 4 of them, but we are not a port, and they only paid out on a port. But I don't give up. That's a result I'm not comfortable with, and I will not give up because this makes sense. Just as Mr. Wright is working on electric engines for his planes, it's Mr. Cote finding we need to work on it. And classic example of where we don't put enough thought into it would be measured around the Winter Olympics that happened, where particularly the buses that they used in Whistler, that we're going to use hydrogen. Great. But we trucked the hydrogen in from Quebec. Not great. So we need to manage that end-to-end. We need a circular economy. We need to be ESG, environmentally social governance in all that we do, and end-to-end. So we need to look at that and say, just for example, I've defined a hat region in Niagara.
Unfortunately, we're out of time,
Okay.
but we'll go to Mr. Weiler now for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Very much appreciate all the witnesses and the passion they're bringing to the discussion today. I'd like to start with my first question to Mr. Cote. You mentioned that your organization is working on renewable electricity solutions in cold weather climates. And of course, that's really fit for purpose for the environment we have here in Canada. But one of the challenges we have from the federal government point of view is that most of electricity in Canada is distributed by provincial utilities. But one area where we do need to focus on is electricity provision in the north, where right now we have communities relying on diesel for their fuel and for their electricity, which is both highly emitting and highly expensive. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit to the work that you're doing in this area, particularly around setting up microgrids with renewable and storage, and maybe what lessons the Government of Canada can learn from when we're going to be administering our off-diesel program.
Oui. Merci pour votre question. En effet.
Thank you for your question. Right now, about 200,000 people in Canada live in independent areas. I mentioned one of the projects. It is the Tarkuti Energy Company in Nunavut. So we work with Inuit people on this project, and we are trying to develop our capacity in communities because in terms of federal policy, that's a lot of money. The challenge is to get a pipeline of projects. And why we don't have a pipeline, it's the capacity to accompany, the ability to accompany. That's why we're working with various Indigenous groups in Quebec at the university. Same thing in the West. We have to work with communities to, first of all, enable them to develop skills so that they can be responsible for their own projects. We want to ensure that there's training in place. What we are seeing is that there are some very interesting federal programs, but it's the travel costs, whether it's bringing them to our institutions or sending trainers there up north. These are significant costs, and we have to come up with some type of a solution. So that's something that you could consider. Indigenous Affairs and Northern Development are involved. They have to pay special attention to that because we have to go there, work with the community. Thank you very much, Mr. Cote.
For Mr. Wright, very exciting to hear the progress and really the breakthrough technology that you've been leading on here. And you mentioned you're at now version 2.0 of your plane. And I'm wondering, with the projections that you have for the development of the technology, when do you see the performance of electric air transport to catch up and match the performance of fossil fuel powered aviation?
Thank you for the question. Interesting question. We're shooting for the first flight commercially, and we see that as a sightseeing flight. We do tours and whatnot, Victoria, Vancouver, that we would carry passengers on a short flight. It's only a 20-minute flight on sightseeing. I think there'll be a lineup on the dock to take that first flight. But how long will it take to convert? And the way technology is going, it's just going every day. I'd probably say within 5 years is my thoughts. But the technology is getting better and better daily. So hopefully I'm wrong on that we can convert fairly quickly. And the rest of aviation following, getting back to what Elizabeth was mentioning about short stages.
No, very exciting to hear. And I mean, one of the other challenges we have, I mean, obviously, I've had the the pleasure of flying on Harbour Air before, but I'm wondering, in terms of flights that are going to maybe require a larger load, where do you see the potential for electric flights in terms of the amount of weight that they can carry, such that it may displace something, not just when we're talking about float planes in Canada, but maybe some of the larger trips, maybe about like 1 hour. When do you see that being able to catch up with that level?
If you can give us a precise date, because we're out of time, or you can answer the question. You can answer the question in response to someone else, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say within 5 years is what my thoughts are.
That's good. Madame Posey, 2 minutes et demie, s'il vous plaît.
2.5 minutes, Mrs. Posey. Thank you. Mr. Cote, you talked about coordination between government levels. In your opinion, the linkage between marketing and research, is it sufficiently supported by federal policy? I would say that we need more coordination because, generally speaking, we see that technological businesses have a lot of engineering skills here in Canada, but they're not so strong when it comes to marketing. So we need some additional support to help this transition from research to the market. Is there any way to resolve this problem? I would say that the challenge is so huge, it's so big that we need to get all of the potential players together, whether it be producers of renewables, whether it be the inventors, the people sitting here around the table today. Everybody has to contribute to this transition. We have to have a good overall view of what is needed: the production of materials, the production of energy, the use of this energy with technology. So I think instead of Canada has a tendency to go by silo. And I think that if we want a real transition, we have to take a more transversal approach. Based on your experience, what stage of development are we at? Are we emerging? Are we looking at deployment? Are we prepared? Where do we get stuck? We have challenges in terms of demonstrations, the TRL. the technology readiness level, that I would say that the challenge is when it comes to marketing, to be able to conduct demonstrations, because when we do a demonstration, we get into regulations, we get to testing. We need programs that will enable us to show what we can do. Thank you, Mrs. Posey.
Ms. Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just following up with Randy Wright again, maybe I'll give you an opportunity if you wanted to say more about that 5 years. You only had a moment to answer the last question.
Yeah, it's with this committee, it was interesting in the discussions with governments on funding, and the Prime Minister announced, on the climate action, quite a large budget and initiative. But in talking to all the folks, what they said was that was for vehicles and whatnot. We don't have anything for aviation. So I just wanted to put that point back in on resources. And they said, you're right. And I said, well, that's crazy because it's a Canadian airplane, a Canadian company, and it's right in the wheelhouse of the agenda. And said, yeah, no, you're right, but we'll have to get back to you. So I needed to make that point.
And I want to thank you for making that point. Air travel accounts for about 22 megatons of CO2. That's the equivalent of 5 million cars annually. If the government had a more transparent and ambitious plan to reduce carbon emissions from the aviation industry, how would that impact the work of your company and of other people in the aviation industry who are doing electrification?
Well, it'd be tremendous. We have boots on the ground helping us on the certification and funding. And to the question before, how many years do I figure? Well, we'll escalate it. So back to resources on what the goal is, of the world right now. Yeah, that would be important. You may have saw that there was a flight today of the Allison today. You may saw the headlines, and so they did their inaugural flight, but they're still saying they're 4 years away to launch, and that's a 9-seat aircraft, back to the weight we were referring to before and the question I got before. So that's where I say in that wheelhouse, if we can get everybody on side and understanding what the goal is and what we're trying to do, getting the resources, we can escalate this. But no disrespect to transport. They've got a team and working with them, but it's been a minefield, I got to tell you, to try to navigate through this.
Thank you.
And they need
Thank
more
you,
resources.
Mr.
Thank you.
Right. We'll go to Mr. Mazur now, please.
Mr. Morgan, I believe that we can reduce a significant number of emissions through technology instead of taxes. And I think the testimony that we've heard throughout the study confirms that. But we also heard about how difficult it can be to commercialize technology in Canada. How do you believe we can commercialize more clean technology in this country?
Reduce red tape.
Okay.
I think and it's common throughout governments, not just the federal, it's provincial. It's just managing those expectations. I think the bigger question here, and it's happened in many times throughout centuries, necessity is a catalyst for change and innovation. And that's where we're at. We are very fortunate to have, even with the COVID epidemic, to have drug companies that made vaccines so quickly. So I think, Randy Wright is right on that it's 4 or 5 years. I don't see our craft. The engines are not a problem. It's the battery technology. It's the weight to ratio, all of it. And it's more critical for airplanes. For us, it's a little different, but it's just the burn that we use. So I think when I get back to that, it's just having clear, direct communication.
Okay. What will happen to intellectual property that we've developed if we're unable to commercialize in Canada? And is this something that you worry about?
Sure. I'm a proud Canadian. We're the proudest people when we drop a puck. But boy, we sure get humble and quiet when it does other things. And World War II is an example of what happens when we roll up our sleeves. We need to be a little strong, but at the end of the day, if Randy doesn't get the help, if I don't get the help, if Frederick doesn't get the help, we've got some friends south of the border that would say, hey, great. And that's the same with even investors. Investors are more savvy, they're less risk-oriented. They say, come on, this is the future, we need to move on with it.
Perfect. Mr. Wright, I guess you're on the screen there. You said that we were behind compared to the Americans. Can you expand on that?
Well, they've got, again, this aircraft that flew today. We're not even close to that. That they've got that through the permitting. The FAA, as I said, and the government admitted, or transport admitted that to me, that they're a year and a half to 2 years in front of us, and they continue to be. And they've got a big agenda that they're trying to. But they have teams to help on this. Again, it's new technology, but they put the resources in there. So
would you say they have a more friendly business environment?
Yes.
And how so? Like especially when it comes to commercialization, that seems to drop off the face of the earth when it hits in Canada here compared to the States.
Well, again, I'm born and raised in Victoria, true Canadian, as Chris said. We're so nice as Canadians, but the Americans have always been way more aggressive, and so they continue to be, and they're outpacing us. But if we can get the resources and people behind it, I think we can escalate it quite a bit.
Okay, Mr. Cote, we seem to invest a lot of money in research and development in clean tech. Do you think it would be in Canada's best interest to obtain data and information on the number of projects that reach commercialization after receiving government funding?
More information we have, the better off we are. I think it would enable us to improve, and as I said earlier, it's really the final stages when we get the technology to market that's the most difficult. We're trying to ensure that the technology gets to a mature level, but we also have to accompany our entrepreneurs with incentives and ensure that we have more advantageous market conditions, because this transition to new infrastructures, to new consumer habits, there's some inertia here. And I must say, we have to really work on this continuum. We have to push and pull.
If the world adopted the technology you were developing on the commercial scale, how many emissions do you think could be eliminated?
A brief answer, please.
Well, 80% from our fleet. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Okay, 80% is good. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Time is up. Yeah, thanks. Okay, Mr. Longfield.
Thanks to all the witnesses, and particular thanks to Mr. Barrett. It's good to see you again, my friend. We've done a lot of volunteer work mentoring businesses in the Guelph region, and it was a surprise to me to see you on the panel. So we finally get to you, Steve. I want to explore the KPIs that are involved with climate change, and one of them has to do with the species that we're losing at an alarming rate. We've had a good discussion about innovation today, and we talk about climate change in terms of weather impacts or climate impacts, but we often ignore the fact that we're losing species. Could you maybe expand on how do we turn that around in terms of measuring this critical part of our climate agenda?
Thanks, MP Longfield. Appreciate that. Great question. So the reality is that species are being lost at an alarming rate, and the ecosystem consists of many interdependent species, and it becomes a very, very complex dynamic. So what's our approach is to measure the entire ecosystem by looking at all of the species that are there. And in particular, and this is anything from plants and bacteria to fish and even marine mammals, and really be able to establish a baseline to see how that biodiversity is changing. For example, some of the work we've done is with the oil and gas companies, ExxonMobil in particular, looking at a site remediation, and really towards MP Dreeshen's question earlier. This is what we call life of fields. What is going on with that industrial enterprise, whether it's a structure or a mine or infrastructure? How is that affecting the ecology over the life of the field? And with our technology, which is an order of magnitude cheaper and faster and easier to use, it becomes an affordable reality.
Thank you. I don't think we've ever had a 5-minute conversation, and at this time of day, usually we're supporting microbreweries as well. But I'd like to try and get us to for this report, we really haven't dived into the measurement of results and the trajectories that we're on. Do you see your technology being able to be scaled up fast enough to get us the measurements that we need, and what's standing in the way?
Great question. So first of all, we are not a startup. We are at TR level 9. We are an active commercial enterprise, and we have to thank our early customers such as ExxonMobil and Shell, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and also the Indigenous Fisheries in Atlantic Canada for really proving out our technology. So it is exceedingly scalable. Actually the biggest choke point for expanding in Canada is the acquisition of samples. It's about 80% of the cost if you think about the cost of chartering a ship and sending them out to collect samples. But with our partnering program, we've developed SOPs that allow non-scientists to collect samples, whether that's in Atlantic Canada and the ocean or in Canada's north by the people who live there, like hunters and trappers.
So time is of the essence right now, but also in terms of the work that you're doing. What can we have for our report on what do we need to accelerate? How can the federal government help you?
We need to accelerate a program that we have underway right now with the Nunavut Fishing Association, and we call it Blue Gene. And Blue Gene is a multi-stakeholder program where it's led by the Indigenous groups. We provide the technology, we provide the tech transfer. We need sponsorship that can go directly to those Indigenous groups. We are prepared to make our facility Indigenous oriented and embed Indigenous scientists and training right inside of our facility. We think that it's a multi-ministry approach. It's collaboration, not just with DFO, but with other ministries to make this happen. Once we establish that template that's happening with Nunavut, we can expand that through Canada's north and also the west coast.
Thank you. And I'm a college grad, mechanical engineering technologist from Red River College. Thank you for the work you're doing with colleges. We need to bring that hands-on into the discussion, but we've run out of time this afternoon, unfortunately. But thank you both for being here as well.
And thank you for always keeping track of your time. It makes my life so much easier. Okay, so that takes us to the end of this panel, and it's been really interesting, I must say, listening to talk of these radical new technologies. Yes?
Can I just ask in closing for everyone in this room, if you could please spend some time to watch 3 documentaries in order. The first one, it's A Life on This Planet by David Attenborough. The second one is Chasing Ice by James Balog. And the third is Breaking Boundaries by David Attenborough. As much as he shows us what we've done, he showed us opportunity to get out of what we've done. His brother was the actor on Jurassic Park. I think we find ourselves smarter than dinosaurs. I don't know, right now, we're destroying our ability to live on this planet. It took a meteor to knock out the dinosaur.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, those are good recommendations, and again, I thank our panelists, and we will break for a couple of minutes while we connect the next panel. Thank you.
So good.
So how is everybody today? Can you still hear me?
Yep. I
Oh,
can hear
great.
you.
We don't have to stop talking just because they all left.
Okay.
Oh, man. Did you guys listen to the business that we've lost to the Americans?
Alors, la deuxième moitié.
So we'll begin the second part of our meeting. Once again, we have 4 witnesses. I will name them. We have Zambor Barani from Biosphere Recovery Technologies, Inc. We have in person Mr. André Rochette from Ecosystem and Dr. Catherine Moran, Ocean Networks Canada. And from Propulsion Quebec, we have on the screen Ms. Camille Lambert-Chan. So I would ask each of our witnesses to take 3 minutes to share some observations with us, and we will begin with Mr. Zambor Barani for 3 minutes, please. Go ahead, Mr. Barani.
I appreciate it. My name is Zambor Barani, and I'm coming to you as a patriotic Canadian that has had no other choice than to accept very large funding from American and European sources. I'm currently working on a very large carbon removal project and deacidification of the oceans. I've exhausted all funding in Canada, avenues for funding in Canada, whereas foreign investors were very eager to proceed. Biosphere recovery technologies will remove, or the intention is to remove, vast amounts of carbon from the environment through the intentional development of algae blooms in the ocean. This is not an initiative that we are just taking it lightly. We have a very, very large research facility planned that will be going through a detailed scientific review of all of the processes involved over the next half decade. The process is well understood and tested at scale, but has never been deployed on a commercial level. Our project involves thousands of people, dozens of large development and research vessels, and the cooperation of leading universities from around the world. Unfortunately, Biosphere Recovery Technologies is no longer a Canadian company. We will still engage as many Canadian participants as possible, but we have effectively lost ownership and control of what would have been a top 50 Canadian business ranked somewhere between Hydro One and Magna. Very few carbon projects have the potential to scale and make a significant dent in climate change. Even large numbers of small initiatives barely move the needle. The large projects that typically do get funded are preventative in nature, which means that they deal with carbon capture at the source, not with removing carbon already in the environment. Unfortunately, CO2 levels are now so high that preventative solutions only slow global warming, not reverse it. And overall, we have virtually no impact on climate change. The funds being spent today are literally negated by global feedback loops. In plain language, most of the projects we are planning have no benefit to the globe, even though it may have a temporary positive local impact. Also, Canada has an economic opportunity to set legislation and practices that would allow Canadians to manage the global economy, global carbon economy. This economy is still the Wild West, and soon there will be many active players involved that will and must eventually come into conflict with each other. There are several proven remedies to these problems that we could implement and which would effectively put us in a leadership or control position. No one oversees carbon recovery on a global scale, and we are perfectly positioned to fill a gap. Canada has all the support infrastructure needed already in place to build a dominant carbon economy, but is unable to bring it into play. Well-meaning but misguided policies prevent the infrastructure bank and other programs from enabling growth.
Okay, I'll have to stop you there, Mr. Barani, but you'll have a chance to share your ideas in answer to questions. We'll go now to Monsieur André Rochette pour 3 minutes, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur Rochette.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here in Ottawa. Ecosystem is a Quebec company with about 20 employees interested in building, in improving the performance of the built environment. Half of our revenues come from the U.S.
That everything can be more efficient. And the industry, real estate and construction, is not efficient for mainly what we believe is 3 reasons. The first one is everything gets built on a cost-plus basis. And so we pay good people to become cost and systems maximizers. And so in there's no incentive for creativity and innovation. And if you combine that with the context of low-cost energy, mainly low-cost energy in North America, we get what we have. On pense que l'industrie a besoin de moins de mesures prescriptives.
We think that the industry needs results-based processes.
To make sure there's clear accountability in the bid process, in the procurement process, in the contracting process, and align financial interest. We're only going to get what we want if our partners in the equation get rewarded for it. I like to give NASA as an example. NASA moved their procurement and contracting process 20 years ago to outcome-based. And they've achieved a great cost reduction with that initiative, and mainly because they reconnected people with results. Their engineers, or the engineers of their partners, are now working with a purpose, and they're motivated to get greater goals. Je pense qu'on donne beaucoup d'importance à la technologie.
We really put a lot of stress on technology. It's very important, especially when I hear Randy's story. Technology is so necessary, but in the built environment, almost 50% of their buildings are more energy efficient than we are with the same technology. Evany Lovins of the United States said that we have to think about paying our professionals in terms of the money they save and not in terms of the money they spend. So everything has to be rethought in the way that we buy products and everything that we do. This is valid in the construction sector, but in everything we do, we have to really be more tied to the final outcome that we wish to achieve. And I would say the same thing about technology. When we think of thermal pumps, heat pumps, we live in a climate where electricity is affordable, it's clean. I saw in your report that the majority of our energy costs are due to heating. Thank you very much, Mr.
I have the privilege of being the president and CEO of Ocean Networks Canada, an operator of world-leading ocean observatories. I'm an ocean engineer and have over 30 years of experience in ocean science and technology. ONC systems host over 12,000 sensors that monitor the west coast and east coast of Canada and the Arctic for many benefits, research, societal, etc. But our ONC infrastructure studies all aspects of the ocean, but is now positioned to advance research in a wide range of technology for ocean-based carbon dioxide removal, which I'll refer to today as negative emission technologies, or NETs. You all know well, for us to sustain human life, rapid and aggressive reductions in atmospheric CO2 are urgently needed. But the top conclusion of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences in 2019 said that NETs must also be implemented, especially if CO2 emission reduction goals are not reached. Recently, the IEA identified the need for widespread NET deployment as early as 2038. NETs have been underexplored to date. The international consensus that NETs are imperative reinforces the urgency to move forward now so that integrated systems can be deployed globally in the next decade. And because the ocean covers 70% of Earth's surface and has already marshaled its natural processes to remove greater than 30% of human-caused GHGs, it holds potential for enhanced uptake of even greater removal of CO2 from the atmosphere, potentially totaling 5+ gigatons per year, if investments are made now for advancing the research needed for these mitigation solutions. With increases in the price of carbon, these ocean-based carbon dioxide removal technologies have good potential to generate income and advance our blue economy, not only with credit revenue, but also through technology export, as you've heard in the first speaker. The IEA forecasts that the carbon removal market will exceed $1 trillion by mid-century. ONC infrastructure is ideally positioned to support the wide range of ocean-based carbon dioxide removal research areas that span 6 different solutions. In addition to ocean water-based nets, Ocean Networks Canada is leading a project called Solid Carbon, which is a climate mitigation strategy that can provide safe and secure CO2 capture from the atmosphere and sequestration that can be scaled to have significant impact in the time frame needed. It combines 6 existing technologies and is based on the fact that ocean basalt reacts with carbon dioxide injected into rock pore spaces to form solid carbonate minerals at greatly accelerated rates. Basalt's abundance in the ocean creates a potential for substantial storage capacities. Solid carbon thus has the potential to sequester 20 plus gigatons per year of CO2, up to half of what needs to be removed from the atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting. Madam.
Ms. Lambert-Chan, thank you very much. My name is Camille Lambert-Chan, and I'm Director of Regulation and Public Policy at Propulsion Quebec, Quebec's industrial cluster for electric and smart transportation. We were started in 2017. We catalyzed the entire sector around joint projects aimed at positioning Quebec as a global leader in developing and implementing smart and electric modes of ground transportation for the benefit of Quebec's environment. Starting with 20 founding members, the cluster now has more than 260 members, from startups to large companies across the province, including institutions, research centers, and mobility services. What role can electrification play? To answer that question, I will go to the last report, which mentioned that electric vehicles powered by low GHG emitting electricity have great potential to reduce GHG emissions from ground transportations on a life cycle basis. Advances in battery technology could facilitate the electrification of heavy-duty trucks and complement a conventional electric rail system. And according to GIEC, electrification combined with low-carbon energy in the transition to mass transit can improve health, employment, energy security, and equity outcomes. Transportation accounts for 43% of Quebec's GHG emissions, so there's great potential to improve our environmental record by transitioning from traditional ground transportation to electric and smart transportation. To do this, we need to reimagine the way urban areas function by reducing energy use, rethinking our supply and transportation routes, and electrifying the vehicles on our roads. Quebec has what it takes to carry out this energy transition and stands out thanks to its abundant clean energy produced through hydroelectricity locally and whose energy rates are among the lowest in the world. Thanks to the expertise of Quebec manufacturers, we build all types of electrical vehicles in Quebec, whether for individual transportation, public transit, freight transportation, recreational transportation, special purpose transportation, or rail transportation. We do everything except cars. To support the deployment of zero-emission vehicles on our roads, Quebec organizations are working on developing charging facilities, smart infrastructures, smart vehicles, and mobility services. While our ecosystem has seen rapid growth for several years, our companies are facing major labor, supply chain, financing, and regulation issues, just to name a few. Propulsion Quebec's role is to address these issues across the electric and smart transportation ecosystem and Quebec's economic development sector. Thank you, and I thank you for your attention, and I hope to answer your questions. Thank you, Ms. Lambert-Chan. In order for us to be able to finish by 5:50, I'm going to reduce the speaking time for every member, and we're going to reduce the time by 25%. So Ms. Posey, Mr. Collins said you'll only be reduced by 20%. So we'll begin with Mr. Seaback for 4.5 minutes, please. Yes, 4.5 minutes.
Quickly, I agree with my colleagues here who have said technology is the answer to meeting any of the net zero targets globally. The IEA has put out a special report, and they said this: 35% of the cumulative CO2 emission reductions needed to shift to a sustainable path come from technologies that are at the prototype or demonstration phase. A further 40% of the reductions rely on technologies not yet commercially deployed on a mass market scale. all of you are in this space of technology. Why are we not succeeding in the technology here in Canada? What's wrong with the investor environment? Because it's not always about government spending. I was hoping that Mr. Barani could answer, then Mr. Rochette, and then Madame Morin.
Ryan, thank you very much for the question. The biggest issue, look, I'll give you an example. I built a telecommunications company here, fastest internet in Canada, $250 million investment. I couldn't get anything out of Canada. The Americans invested, they bought it, they own it now. Where did they get the money? From Canada Pension Plan. So the funny thing is that we're happy to invest our currency into foreign markets, which then reinvest in Canada. So we don't have policies here that would push the funds to the people that need it. The infrastructure bank doesn't support small initiatives. It's very, very difficult to get funding from them. Even we couldn't get funding from them, but they're geared towards large corporations. So we have the ability to get funds, but our institutions aren't pointing them at us. They're pointing them out abroad. So the small corporations that are trying to grow can't access them.
Things. First one is I don't think we have enough outcome based. I heard Randy say today something is prescriptive. Like, we're subsidizing cars but not airplanes. So this is not like outcome based. This is a recommendation to look at one thing. So I think we should tell the market this is the goal, this is what we need to accomplish, and become more outcome based. And the second thing is I think, technology is great, but efficiency is better. Like the more efficiency we have, the smaller the problem becomes. And so all these technologies will by the time we have them, if the problem is smaller to solve, it makes it easier.
I'd just like to point out that it's a policy change to the way that the infrastructure bank is all that's really needed. We don't need more money from the taxpayers. The funds are already sitting there to be applied to all of these initiatives, whether they're airplanes that are being built, electric vehicles, all of the money's already there. We just can't get it.
I would also say for negative emission technologies, there's a new awareness. People are just realizing. And scientists have known this, but people are just realizing it. So it's a new area of research that needs to advance technology rapidly. Yeah. In the U.S., when there is high risk, high reward technology that needs to be developed, the first tool they use is government procurement. They buy it first, get it funded, and that moves it further to have then investments from venture capitalists going forward. So let's use our procurement tool and get some of these technologies going.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. 4 minutes seems a lot longer today than it normally does. I'm just actually going to say, if anybody else wanted to add anything more to that, this is to me it's the real focus is how are we going to actually commercialize these technologies here in Canada so that we have well-paying jobs and solve some of these problems. Does anyone else anything else to add?
Yeah, sure, I can add. I've mentioned Ocean Networks Canada. So we have the research infrastructure to advance early stage technologies to be higher technology readiness level. So supporting SMEs in doing that research to advance their technologies is low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but we do get a lot of research out. We have great ideas. We have great technology that comes in. The problem is converting it to large-scale commercialization. I think that and large corporations, they will reinvest in their own research. That's not a problem. The issue is how do you take these small corporations and commercialize them on a large scale? And almost invariably, that goes overseas.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Taylor-Roy for 4.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here. I wanted to just talk about the same issue that Mr. Seebeck has just raised, which is getting to commercialization and why more Canadian companies aren't able to do that. And in the last panel, one of our witnesses spoke about the need for kind of a push and a pull. And I think, Ms. Morin, you also mentioned that the high price on carbon helps to make it feasible to produce and to commercialize some of these technologies because it requires that much. But there's a lot of controversy around whether it's just about investment in clean technology or whether we actually need to have that push as well with the price on carbon, and with perhaps encouraging pension plans to put more of the money into Canadian corporations. And so more of a push from the government as well. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that for all of you, actually, but perhaps we could start with Mr. Rochette.
I think the best example, when I say outcome-based, one of the great examples is New York City. We do a lot of stuff in New York City. They came out with a new regulation that's called the LL97, and it's an outcome-based regulation. So it's basically saying to the market, you need to reduce emissions by a certain date, otherwise you'll be penalized. And I think once you do that, you really let the market figure it out. So it's really like it's outcome-based, but you let the market figure out the solution. And it drives everybody in the same direction. And so instead of saying, like, maybe it's that solution or this other solution, it tells the market, this is a problem we're trying to solve, and if you don't solve it, it's going to cost you that much. And so people get creative, and they solve it.
Thank you. So that's similar to what the government is proposing right now with fertilizer, 30% reduction in the carbon emissions from fertilizer. You're saying the output's based, and then let the technology develop to meet that regulation. Yeah, thank you. Ms. Moran or Mr. Morani, do either of you have comments on that, or Ms. Lambert-Chan?
Oh, I just agree with what the previous speaker just said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think we're missing an opportunity. These technologies are going to be developed, but it's the Wild West right now. Everybody's trying to figure out their own way. And the problem is that there's nobody taking a leadership role on where we're going to go with this industry. We've done a lot of work in the past setting up quotas and being able to establish rules with the way that people are trying to extract carbon. So the problem is that these pollutants aren't bounded by our borders. And so whenever one of these large initiatives is kicked off, it's typically international. And what happens is that you will have players that come into conflict with each other because they have to. They will be stepping on each other's toes, I think it would be very helpful if Canada was able to take a leadership role in trying to bring together and align the policies that other countries have, because even they are sometimes in conflict with each other, in order to establish the rules and the parameters of how we can do carbon extraction down the road. Once you've established that, then you can set goals and targets for these companies that are trying to do these things, and then that will drive the rest of the industry. So there's a lot of policy work that needs to happen in conjunction with our partners and trading partners to make this work.
Okay. How much time do I have left? A little less than a minute. Oh, great. Okay, Mr. Barani, that's very interesting that you say that we need to be setting these targets. Are you talking about carbon markets and trying to set the rules around that, or what specifically are you referring to when you're saying?
Right. So I'm talking about both, actually. There are no clear guidelines, and the industry needs them. So you have to take into account political, geographic, economic circumstances. They all need to be crafted, and there needs to be a convergence of policies amongst all nations, including our trading partners in particular. So once you've established that, now you've set the ground rules. Everybody's looking for ground rules. Everybody wants to know, how do I get into this sector, or how do I get into that sector, or how do I get my airplane in the air? Like all these things, we don't know. And every country's kind of running off in their own direction right now, and occasionally align.
Thank you. Merci.
I think Canada has a great history in being able to do this.
Merci.
And so if we took a leadership role in this, we'd be able to establish ourselves.
Madame Posé, vous disposez de 4 minutes et demie.
Ms. Posey, you have 4.5 minutes. My question is for Mr. Rochette. To hear you speak is music to my ears. I went to New York City last week as part of the Climate Week, and I was told about the Empire Building Challenge, which brings various players around to accelerate energy efficiency. And I discovered with great pride that your company is a consultant to for this project. There's New York State Energy Resort, there's Development Authority, there's the Carrefour project in all applicable sectors that's working to accelerate this transition. Now, let's come back to Canada. Do you think that the Carrefour, that the clean technology fund for Canada will be encouraging? And do you think it's useful to your business? Which always surprised me with all these initiatives, it's often done in silos, and we apply the same silo everywhere. And with the problems that we're trying to resolve in both Quebec and Canada, and even in New York, it's always the same problem. Everything's fragmented into very small initiatives, into little think tanks. And in my opinion, we need to consolidate all of this, get this information together. There's a lot of data, data that's fragmented, and when it's fragmented, it's less powerful. Despite all of the, what about the financial impacts of making a transition to a green economy? And what about the future users of this technology? That's a good question. I think the financial benefits of all this is no longer something we have to demonstrate. Once again, it's a huge question. Do we have to look at efficiencies or technology? I think we need to do the both if we want to really achieve our objectives. The challenge is so huge. We need everything. So the clientele that finds out that there are some economic gains. Yes, our clients, if there's no economic gain, they're not there. So yes, often the economic gains will be first and foremost in front of the emissions, but it depends on the regulatory regime. If the regulations force the clients to reduce emissions, well, then the clients will have to do it, and our projects will focus on that. Thank you. Do I have any time remaining? You have 1.5 minutes remaining. Okay. So, since you've been in operation, do you see a linkage between the funding of clean technology and businesses that are in the supply business? Can you try and tie these two things together? I think there's been a lot of yo-yoing over the past 30 years, but clearly over the past 5 years, we see there's much better alignment with respect to the funding of technology and regulations that promote efficiencies. When you look at the results that we're achieving today, we're still very far from getting what our ultimate goal. And what is the big obstacle, in your opinion? Is it the fact that everything's done in silo, or there's a lack of coordination? The obstacles, well, clearly, as I was saying, it's a lack of alignment. The federal government's requests for proposals, well, they maximize costs, and we can't get exceptional results in terms of performance if the focus is constantly on the cost of the project as opposed to on the results of the projects. So we tend to view the cost rather than the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today. My questions are for Kate Morin. You mentioned solid carbon has the potential to sequester over 20 gigatons a year of CO2. Now, that is a massive amount. I was trying to find something comparable. If you took every single vehicle in the world off the road, that would only be between 5 and 6 gigatons a year. And so 20 gigatons a year, I just want to, really emphasize how huge that is. And I was also really interested in what you'd said about the carbon dioxide removal research areas, those 6 different solutions. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about those 6 areas.
Sure. Well, for solid carbon, this is bringing 6 different technologies together, including direct air capture. And it does rely on the fact that the direct air capture technologies are now getting invested in tremendously, and that their volumetric capacity and their costs are going to be reduced. But the capacity in ocean basalt is globally is 250,000 gigatons. capacity. And that's what we've estimated in ocean basalt. It's been demonstrated in Iceland that CO2 reacts with the rock, forms solid minerals, and it's durably sequestered. But most of the basalt is in the ocean, particularly young basalt like this. So that's our estimate right now, that it has a giant sequestration reservoir capacity. But it does rely on advancing direct air capture, which we're not doing research on, but many, many others are investing in. In terms of the ocean technologies, I think Canada's with us. We have great infrastructure, so we have a great potential to actually grow these 6 different technologies in various ways. So it's iron fertilization in the ocean, it's enhanced upwelling, it's electrochemical solutions in terms of both alkalinity and removing CO2 from seawater. It's kelp growth. It's some of its nature-based solutions which don't have a huge capacity to sequester carbon, but they do have other benefits. And so it's those range of technologies that we can advance, and we are already being contacted by U.S. companies, startups who want to use our infrastructure to move their technology along. And it would be great to see some Canadian tech startups actually use our infrastructure to advance that research and get that technology readiness higher. And because we already have infrastructure, we're way ahead of the game internationally.
And it sounds like Ocean Networks Canada is doing some really exciting work. In your view, are the projects that you're working on getting the kind of stable long-term funding they need to be successful?
Well, we've just, the government has supported us in our operating fund, so I'm happy to say that we have a runway ahead of us. So what we're talking about now is really showcasing the fact that we operate this infrastructure that then can be used and in new ways, such as carbon dioxide removal.
And there are some folks who argue that we can kind of rely on negative emissions technologies to meet our climate targets, that we don't need to act now on efforts that really bring our emissions down quickly. In fact, they were arguing in the House today to get rid of the price on carbon. Can you talk about the role that negative emissions technologies can play in our efforts to keep global temperatures below 1.5, both in the short term, but also in the long term, and kind of the frame around that?
Yes, I mean, it was started in 2017 when the UN Environment Program put out that first declaration so that no matter how fast or how slow we reduce our emissions, negative emission technologies will be needed. And at that time, they said sometime by mid-century. We now know that sooner because we haven't been reducing our emissions, which are essential. We cannot, we have to ensure that our emissions, whether it's through efficiency, which was just talked about, or through direct reduction of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So there's no question that's needed. But of course, now we know from scientific research that the negative emission technologies are needed, and we're seeing it. A paper last week came out about tipping points, and the paper updated tipping points. Even at just slightly greater than 1 degree, we're going to start seeing these major tipping points.
Thanks very much.
In the climate system.
We'll go to our second round now with Mr. Carey and 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses. A very exciting testimony. We just heard Madame Morin talk about these carbon removal technologies, negative emission technologies. And from what I read in your opening statement and your material, Mr. Bharani, it sounds like you're actually doing it. You're a Canadian company, okay? And it's very disappointing. You sounded very disappointed that you had to commercialize and move out of Canada, because I think this is an opportunity not only to change Canada, but to change the world. But for me, it's all about jobs. I like to keep jobs in Canada. Could you just kind of explain to us what your initiatives are with biosphere recovery technologies, what you're running and how your company's structured? Could you give us a little insight onto these projects you're involved in?
Thank you very much. So ONC actually, ironically, is working on many of the same initiatives that we're doing, but our focus is actually bringing them to a commercial level. So our research facility has a $250 million budget for ocean research and a $500 million budget for plastics research, which are the polymers and the extraction of polymers out of the ocean, which, by the way, is as dangerous to us, if not more so, than the carbon is. So it's a multinational initiative. There's an extraordinary amount of funding coming out of the U.S. and Europe for this. We're expecting to have between 3,000 and 5,000 employees. Many of them will be in Canada. We will be working with the universities and the other institutions here. I would like to get as much support as possible from University of Toronto, Simon Fraser, Dalhousie, because they have a lot of background in this type of industry. The biggest thing I think I want to point out is that we want to have a lot of scientific rigor around the planning and the work that we do with continuous feedback and a very open process that would allow us to be able to take the next step in carbon capture and removal. But we're looking at all kinds of technologies, but the first one really is carbon and plastics.
But it really does sound like game-changing technology. And again, I noticed in your opening, you sounded like you're very disappointed we couldn't get the job done here in Canada.
It's devastating.
One of your recommendations is about, to me too. Like, I think, this is a great opportunity to lead the world, and we kind of dropped it. But you mentioned how we could change the infrastructure bank. And really, your recommendation here, it doesn't sound like it would really cost us anything.
No.
As a government. Could you elaborate on that? Because it not only would help you, but the testimony, the panel before, we're saying over and over, we can't get the assistance, and the red tape in Canada is stopping us from getting the job done. Could you evaluate on that recommendation, please?
You have 30 seconds, please, Mr. Moran.
Pardon me?
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. The Americans and the Europeans provide funding, 100% project funding at pretty much 0% interest for 20 years. The infrastructure bank has the capability to do that. All you have to do is match what they do. These projects are very, very important, and most of them make quite a bit of money. So we need to loosen up the criteria. That's all. It's just a policy change.
Thank you. We'll go now to Ms. Thompson. We'll go now to Ms. Thompson for 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the witnesses. I would like to begin with Dr. Moran, if I could. I was really interested to read that you have 6 permanent buoys as part of your research outreach around the island of Newfoundland, which is my home province, and certainly in light of the adverse weather system we witnessed over the weekend. Practical information for me is really quite important when we really begin to understand how important ocean health is to a climate crisis. Could you speak about what information or data is being gathered from those buoys, how that knowledge is being used, and then ultimately the practical applications going forward?
Yes, of course. Those buoys give real-time information in the first go-ahead with marine safety. So ship operators use those data to make decisions, of course. They also are used to understand the changes in the ocean climate system. And so what we're doing with those data and other data along the coast of Canada is basically using that data to feed into what we call inundation models. So we stitch together the bathymetry and the topography, and then we drive ocean inundation, like you just saw brutally in Atlantic Canada just recently, and we drive those waves into this coastline to forecast what could happen along in these areas that are going to be impacted by sea level rise. So we're working on that now in BC, in the Arctic, and our next phase will be in Atlantic Canada, and we certainly, it's obviously certainly needed.
Thank you. Do you share this information at this time, or is something that you're projecting at a later date? So really the application of the information.
Yeah. So we share all of the information about the inundation models. It's openly shared. We work with Canadian companies to help us do that work. So it's a private public partnership. But all of our information is openly available on our website, and then our results of these inundations are through reports mainly that we can provide openly.
If you would like, if you could expand at this point how that information is shared or the application of the information, what would you, in an ideal situation, like to see? In terms of forecasting and just like the realities of the adverse environment systems that we are witnessing.
Yes, I think we need to be doing these forecasts at all of the areas along Canada's coast that are at risk of inundation from these incredibly stronger storms we're seeing, and on top of that, the increase in sea level rise. And so it's really understanding where sea level rise is, maximizing it and combining it with these storms. So we need to be doing this on all our coasts, and Ocean Networks Canada has now done it for much of Vancouver Island, some of the southwest coast of BC. We're starting to do it in the Arctic, and as I said, we need to move faster and do something in Atlantic Canada.
Thank you. And if I have any time left, I believe I should have a few moments.
You have 30 seconds for a comment, I guess.
Very quickly, I want to ask the other witnesses if you have looked for any funding from the Clean Growth Hub. And throw it out to anyone to add.
Didn't qualify.
Okay. That just about covers the time. We'll go to Madame Posey for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Ms. Lambert-Chan. Thank you for coming here today. I know that you have a meeting with the Science Center in October. Could you tell me what you're doing with youth in terms of training? You talked about developing the workforce and being prepared for a transition that's equitable for everyone. I think you have some very good ideas on that note. Thank you to speak for raising this question. This is a huge issue for all of our business. The project that you're dealing with, that you mentioned in October, is called En Route, and it's tailor-made for graduates, and it's trying to really put them in contact with the transport sector and help us to fill a lot of vacant positions in the sectors where we say that there are a lot of programs that are required at both the CEGEP and university level, but we mustn't forget the whole technical side to things as well. And there's some huge issues at stake here in order to ensure the growth of our businesses. And as we said earlier, we need to fund startups, but we also have to focus on the workforce. This meeting will enable us to reach out to 1,000 people in Montreal, and we're going to present different career paths to young people who are perhaps not familiar with a career. Yes, we talked about, with the previous panel, we talked about the lack of coordination because we work in silos too much. Do people respond? Unfortunately, your time is up. Yes. Can you say yes or no? Yes. Yes. There's a
minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Kate Moran again, you've talked a little bit about what makes solid carbon different from other negative emissions technologies, and why storing carbon in the subsea floor is so promising. What other opportunities do you see for Canada in the blue economy?
Oh, there's many. Some of the areas that we're working with SMEs in Canada, for example, we've worked with JASCO and other companies in Atlantic Canada developing very high quality sensor systems like hydrophones. And in working with them, we have been able to help them develop basically capturing information about ocean noise so that it can be used in real time to make policy decisions on the fly, for example, moving shipping lanes to protect southern resident killer whales, or just plain old reducing noise. So that's one of the examples that is really important in the future. Everywhere in the ocean, we need to begin to be reducing that impact on marine mammals in the country. In addition to that, as I mentioned, this technology to actually forecast inundation, that kind of technology needs to be exported and know-how so they can be used in many of these small island states in the world where they don't have that know-how to actually forecast and make plans on how they either need to retreat or actually put in protections for their work. We're also really looking at new ways to observe the ocean for expanding the marine protected areas, monitoring, and that is through autonomous vehicles that then would be hosting sensor systems that are built and marketed from Canadian SMEs. And I would say Canada has the best collection of ocean sensor technology companies in the world. And so through that work, we can be showcasing those sensor systems to help market them because their market is mainly international.
Thank you.
I think I've touched on a few. You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mazur for 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
Mr. Barani, if Canada wants to be the hub of clean tech and investment and commercialization, how important is it the government to create an investment-friendly business environment?
I think it's critical. You need both the investment environment and also you need to establish leadership role in the regulatory process. And
Okay.
once you've established a path for that, then you will see an influx of innovators, not an exit of innovators.
Okay.
I think it's critical.
You commented before about your experience around a Clean Growth Fund, and you were denied that. Can you expand on that, or tell us your story around the Clean Growth, your experience around?
Yeah, the problem is that the type of technology we're doing isn't a commercial technology. Primarily, it's research right now, and then after research, commercialization. With commercialization, we'd be getting carbon credits. So it just doesn't fit neatly into the box that you need to tick off. And I think that's a problem that everybody's facing, is that we're in a new industry and it just doesn't fit perfectly in the box, and everybody agrees that this should be funded. No question about that. The problem is nobody's got the capability to do it.
And you would say that that's a perfect example of government not being supportive of the business environment.
And they're just not flexible. That's the problem. You pass down mandates. They have a very specific path that they can follow, and if you're just outside of it by 1 inch, you don't qualify.
Okay. So I know you've mentioned a few different points of reducing red tape. There's some suggestions on policy change, but give me your top 1 or 2 things that we could really do to get commercialization going here in Canada in clean
I think you
tech
could change the problem overnight by just restructuring the infrastructure bank. I've had a lot of experience with these guys. They're great guys. There's nothing wrong with them. The problem is that they cannot change the way that they do their lending because of the policies that are in place. So it's onerous for these type of businesses to come up with the requirements that they need they need to meet. So I think we need to change the infrastructure bank. I have an open letter that I can share with you.
That would be great if you.
The story of your company going south of the border is not a new story. I think we've all heard it before, and there are many critics of our innovation ecosystem. We do incredible R&D. We develop the IP.
Yeah.
We can't get the money to scale up. We get scooped up. That's happening with big tech all over the place. It's happening in water technology and energy technology. I wonder if you would amplify a little bit on Mr. Mazur's question on, I mean, what, if you were innovation minister for a day, you know, what would you change? How would you change the infrastructure bank? Maybe be a little more granular. We have the Clean Growth Hub. We have the Net Zero Accelerator. We seem to have a lot of stuff, but again, to Mr. Rochette, results could be better.
Yes. So, thank you for that question. It's not that hard. I would allow the infrastructure bank to be able to fund between 75 and 100% of projects. I would allow the infrastructure fund to provide a 0% loan for 20 years. And I would allow them to be able to adjust the payback rates to 0 for that period of time. A lot of these projects are long-term and they're very lucrative. The problem is you can't kick them off the ground. If we can do that, they'll be able to support this growth in this industry. The U.S. already does this. They have a $105 billion fund that is doing exactly this, and that's a fund that we've tapped into.
Okay. Could you send that to us in some sort of communication? I think it'll be very useful for the committee as part of your testimony, and I can tell you we'll take a very close look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, I will share that with you, and I can also tell you that the Federal Reserve in the U.S. directly backs $20 billion of that fund through gold reserves.
Okay. I see I've got, how much time do I have, Mr. Minister? Minister, I just elevated you. Just quickly to Mr. Rochette, buildings can give us, buildings are 13 to 18% of our emissions profile. So they're a place where we can get real gains on reducing carbon pollution. You are the Minister of Procurement for a day. Again, as I understand it, all the technology that can get us to our goals exists, but it may take more innovation in processes and just being creative about how we do things. So, Minister, what would you do?
Well, again, I think, you know, outcome-based procurement and contracting is great because it tells the market we have a problem with this building, and yes, we do buildings. We also do industrial. We have a problem with this industry. We have a problem with this building. What would you do to solve it? Like they said to SpaceX and Boeing, you know, we need to go to the space station. How would you do it? How much would it cost? And then the engineers compete against each other for the best solution, and then they have to deliver it. I think, you know, this is night and day. Like you incentivize creativity and innovation.
Jacket.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you. And that takes us to the end of a very interesting set of panels. And I want to thank our panelists for this discussion about individual technologies that will help us make progress against greenhouse gas emissions and so forth. So thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you to the members for your patience today. And we'll be meeting next Tuesday because Friday is of course a holiday. So thank you again to everyone, and have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.